What is Brixx?
Brixx is a designed for purpose, time-based financial modeling toolkit, an application designed for the purpose of building business models so that you can plan your business. It's designed for purpose. Right. So you got to think, why do I want a plan or a model of my business? So actually just take a step back there, because we can confuse these terms of business model and business plan. The output is the plan, right? But if you've got a model, you can run many scenarios: good, better, best, worst case, best case, what if this, what if that. That's what you want to be running. And all of these scenarios are scenarios that you could resource, plan, and execute in the business. It's a decision you could make. Hire these people, acquire that business, put the prices up, whatever it might be. And you want to look at the consequence of those decisions you might make today. So think of it like a wind tunnel, and you're putting your business in the wind tunnel. So F1 manufacturers today do not design a car, put a driver in it, send it out at 200 miles an hour, see if it takes off and crashes and kills the driver. They don't do that. They build a model, they put it in the wind tunnel, and they make the modifications, lift the wing here, there, look at the downforce, look at the power degradation, whatever it might be they're looking at. And it might take off and crash in the wind tunnel. No damage. We've learnt a lot, right? Same with your business. Put it in the wind tunnel, run it. You don't want to run out of cash. You want to be fully resourced. You want to look at the risk of different decisions you might today. And that's why you need an application designed for purpose that builds a business model. And one of those modeling scenarios can become your plan.
So who is the typical kind of company using Brixx?
Actually, all businesses are the same by components: income, expenditure, assets, funding. So the different types of businesses are defined by cultures, the way that people work, whereas fundamentally they're those elements, and Brixx captures those elements and gives you the financial outcome of the combination of all of those elements of your business. So it applies equally to a startup trying to see whether their business idea is financially viable, at what level it becomes viable, what funding they might require. And it works as well at that level as it does at an enterprise where you've got a product manager who's got products they're selling around the world for price and volume and elasticity, and you want to look at the contribution, the gross profit of those product lines back to the overhead base of a major enterprise. So actually, it works across the whole spectrum. Every company, every person conceives of the future. We just do as human beings, right? What we're going to eat tonight, we're planning that, we're modeling that, well, what do I need? Where can I get it? And in the same way, every business is actually forecasting. The formality of that may be different. So in the big enterprises, they will have enterprise-wide software accumulating all the inputs of all of the people and trying to make some sense of it. But fundamentally, they're doing the same thing. They're forecasting. They're looking at the financial outcome of decisions they can make today.
But when a company is thinking about using Brixx, say, for financial forecasting, what's to stop them from just doing the forecasting themselves?
Well, people do. Okay. And it's a good question, because we all use spreadsheets, right? But we are using a tool that's not designed for financial forecasting. It doesn't understand time. It confuses what I would describe as a business modeling best practice: separate the input data from the processing of that data from the output of that data. Best modeling practice would separate those things. And spreadsheets don't, because that cellular format, you can either put data in that cell, you can have an algorithm, a calculation in that cell, or you can have it as an output number. So you have that total confusion. And that's why people get themselves in trouble with spreadsheets. It's not designed for that purpose. Spreadsheets are wonderful for many, many purposes. So here we have an application that was designed for purpose to overcome those issues of trying to use spreadsheets for modeling. Another issue with a spreadsheet is that IP of that spreadsheet is in the head of the creator. So if that person goes away under the bus, whatever, you lose the IP. You have to start again with that spreadsheet. Whereas with an application like Brixx, the IP is held inside the app. So you see it on paper. These are my business transactions. This is when I expect them to happen. Here's the financial ramification of those business transactions. And that's what Brixx provides.
Could you expand into the machine that runs Brixx, that enables these simulations to be done?
So Brixx was conceived and built and even patented back in the late 90s. So we're talking 25 years ago when Brixx came to being. And 25 years ago, people were using spreadsheets. Lotus 123 and VisiCalc in those days, Excel, and obviously now ubiquitously Excel. So the need hasn't changed. The propensity of large businesses to plan is the same today as it was then. Businesses structure themselves to plan, to create a plan that they can then resource, commit to shareholders' performance on, or markets on, and so they have the resources and always have done that. As you go into smaller and smaller businesses, it becomes more and more spreadsheet-like, and it becomes, ultimately, a piece of paper and a calculator. If you're running a small shop, why do you need anything more than that? And if you go to some sole traders, it's in their head, it's in their gut. This is what I'm planning to do. And they may be right for the large part of it, but the world has changed. There was a time when forecasting, extrapolating was absolutely fine. Markets were growing or receding gently or changing. There wasn't a lot of volatility. Just go back 5 years, COVID, markets collapsing, inability of people to get to the high street. What do you do if you're a retailer? Well, you're out of business for a while. How do you plan that? How do you resource that? How do you plan to come back into profitable trading? When do you plan that? Well, that's just one dimension of the volatility. Look at the wars that are going on, the impact on the cost pricing of energy, and the impact that has on every bit of the supply chain. How do you model those things? And so you've got this volatility, and I think more and more people realize that rather than it being nice to plan, they need to plan. They need to plan more formally. And so, not everybody is an Excel expert or has access to the expertise. So having an app that you can interact with at a business level, because your business transactions, put those in and look at the financial ramification of those transactions. So in effect, turn what running your business, whether it's making skateboards or a barista at a coffee shop, turn those transactions into the language of finance, P&Ls, cash flows, balance sheet. Because sure as eggs are eggs, when you're looking for funding or you're looking for a loan or investment, you're going to need to be able to speak that language. How profitable are you? What's your payback? What's happening to the balance sheet progression? What's the cash need? Short term, mid term, long term? What are your funding needs? How are you going to do that? You need to encapsulate those things. And the great thing is that 20 years ago, when you're out there saying, "Hey, you need to plan," people are going, "No, I don't need to plan. I know my business." But today they're saying, "No, I do need to plan. I can't afford to run out of money. I've got dependencies. The markets are volatile. The extremities of what might happen are therefore wider. The risk is therefore wider. I need to have a better handle on that." And today you don't need to be an accountant to run those models. You can do it yourself when you've got an app like Brixx.
I see. Okay, so have I understood correctly that not only does Brixx applications like yours for financial forecasting offer a a better solution to a spreadsheet, but they're actually easier to use as well. It takes the weight out of it's no longer an arduous task to make these plans, because they're things that we should all be doing anyway, but we either don't do them because we can't be bothered, or it's in our heads and we feel confident in that fact, or we use a spreadsheet which takes some time to create in the way that you want it to work.
If you're a business person, you understand your market, your products, and where and how much and who the customers are. You know that, right? But you're not an accountant. But you do want to see what the financial consequence of your business idea is. And so that interpretation, as I said a little earlier, is what an application like Brixx does. It turns your business ideas into that language of finance.
Have you found people coming to you looking to use the Brixx solution, to use the software, to take that information for investment purposes or to obtain loans from the bank?
The beauty of an app like Brixx is that you do not need to be an accountant to create a 10-year business plan showing the short-term cash needs, the longer-term funding needs, the progression of the value of the business encapsulated in the balance sheet, the profitability of not only the whole business but the elements within the business. You need that feedback to make more informed business decisions today. It's as important in your business model to see the things that don't make money and never will make money as much as it is to see the things that do make money. So a lot of businesses will have product lines that don't contribute back to the overhead base. They're just not profitable. But once you run a model like Brixx and you put all the costs that are related, you realize that actually we're not making any money on this. Well, that's a good thing to know. And so Brixx will help you to do that in your terms, in your business terms, not in financial speak, in your terms. And you can relate those business transactions into those reports that the accountancy profession understands so well, accounting professionals understand so well, of profit and loss and cash flow and balance sheet. I've got to produce a 3-year business plan for the bank in order for them to get comfortable with the level of borrowing or the overdraft facility. So they need to see a business plan. Fastest way to create a business plan, P&L, cash flow, and balance sheet is to use Brixx. It's not even a debate. And then you can, when you present that to the bank, they'll say, yeah, but what if interest rates double? What if those sales don't go up at that rate? And you can play those scenarios so you can give the answers with confidence. You can pre-run those. So the purpose is for borrowing in that case, securing the funding required or the cash flow required to run the business. Investors, more and more businesses, we've seen this. This is the period of business evolution we're in, people moving out of cities into balancing life and work and starting their own businesses, being more confident to start their own businesses. Go back to my era, and it was a job for life. 40 years at IBM sort of thing would be normal, and that's what people were looking for. Now, if you did 40 years in the company, people say, "What's wrong with you?" If you move every 2 years, they'd be going, "What's wrong with you? Why aren't you moving don't you learn everything in a year, 18 months? Why are you hanging on for 2 years?" It's changed completely. However, people are starting businesses in increasing volumes, working for themselves, lifestyle businesses, working in their environment on their terms, and therefore there is this sort of democratization, if you like, of business planning down to people who then need to create a plan to attract investment. So if you want to attract investment, you are going to have a deck. Okay, the words are simple. You can wax lyrical about those because it's your passion, right? But what people want to see are the numbers. When do I get my money back? What is the rate of return? What's the risk around that yield that you're showing me? So they want a deck. And in that deck, the most important document for me always, maybe not for Dragon's Den, but for me is the financial document that shows, how much investment are you requiring? When do I get that back? What's the yield, etc.
So what you can do then, you mentioned Dragon's Den, but when someone's saying, okay, well, you want my money and you'll want to use it in this part of your business, you can actually forecast that, and they can say, yeah, we think if we take 50 grand of your money for marketing, it will generate this at the end of it.
Yeah. Every time I watch Dragon's Den, I realize that the answer is always Brixx. How many times have you seen the entrepreneur struggle with the numbers? Doesn't need to struggle with the numbers, knows the business. And it's just, let a piece of software do the heavy lifting that turns your business idea into numbers. And then you can have that conversation in the language of finance with Peter Jones and the rest of the guys, and they will go, guy knows his stuff. Let's run that scenario.
Could you help me understand the brain behind the app, what's it doing?
If you sat down 20 years ago or next week and you say, how do we overcome the challenges we've got with the technology we've got to build a model of the business? One of the first things you need to understand is time, because we're human beings, we live in this time continuum. And every single business decision you make is time-based. Do I hire somebody next week to put the prices up in a month? Do I divest myself of that investment in a year? They're all time-based. So the first thing is that you should have a piece of software that understands time.
How does an app understand time compared to a function perhaps in a spreadsheet that's, counting calendar days and things like that?
Those business transactions we talk about that you understand in your business, you also understand the timeliness of those transactions. So, I'm going to sell scooters. So I've got to buy the scooter. So I've got to lay the cash out now. I won't get it for another month, and then I won't sell it for another 2 months after that. Right? So just doing the arithmetic around that, software does that for you. And so back to the human interface here, when these things are going to happen. You put them in. The software then calculates the cash cycle that sits around each of these transactions, compiles these and presents these back to you. But the logic we're talking about is accounting logic. It's double entry, which means that at the end of the input of those transactions, you have a balanced balance sheet. Assets and liabilities, investments, etc. And it's a balanced balance sheet because it's double entry, because everything has a source and a destination. And let the software do that. Why try to replicate that and invent that in a spreadsheet? And by the way, if you've got a spreadsheet and you've done 12 months forecast for this year, and you go, I wonder what that looks like by quarter. It's simple, right? You just got to insert a column, you've got to summate all the things to the left, you've got to check it, double check it, and you've got to do that a few times, and then if you want a total on the end, you've got to do that too. Yeah, that's fine. It's afternoon's work to do all of that, a few hours work, I don't know. But in Brixx, you just go, show me that by quarter, show me that by year, show me that biannually, show me that by month, show me that by week. And Brixx does the heavy lifting. Why, you shouldn't be as the business person, you're possibly not a programmer, and the chances of you making an error in that are quite high. But that's a simple request. But if the software understands the time, let software do it.
So Brixx asks me, as I come to using Brixx asks me first of all to establish all of those inputs, as I understand it. So it shows me a front end that allows me to input those details.
Yes.
And then I'm able to ask then the software itself to do all the hard part of calculations for me, so that if I want to see now, okay, based on the information I've provided, the same information I would have put into a spreadsheet over time, it's now going to be able to use its brain power to show me what's this going to look like next week, what's this going to look like in a year's time.
So you build your model, and that's a structure of these transactions over time. So we can structure it in Brixx. You can see a picture of that. You're putting them in on a timeline. That timeline is dynamic. What that means is that once you've got your model, you then want to ask questions of it. You want to stress test it. What if? What if? What if? All of those what ifs are time-based. I mean, in Brixx, the timeline's dynamic, so you can actually, what happens if I complete that business development, that property development, 6 months later because we can't start until planning comes along. In Brixx, put your mouse on the project, move it 6 months, drop it. There's the P&L cash flow and balance sheet consequence of that move. It's as quick as that. Move it, drop it. Now I can see the consequence. So I can ask that question, get the answer, almost real time, without having to say, I wonder if we don't get planning for another 6 months, must get the accountant to run that scenario.
Okay. And when a user of Brixx receives those results, one of the things I'm thinking about is if I was an investor and I'm looking at a report provided to me by Brixx. We spoke earlier about how a spreadsheet contains the information and the logic is contained within the head of the creator of the spreadsheet. Does Brixx enable someone to understand deeper how these forecasts were created? If they want to dive deeper into the logic, for example, let's say an investor was studying a report from Brixx. Is that something that Brixx is able to reveal, or do you see where I'm coming from on that?
Yeah, so each number that comes out in the Brixx report comes from somewhere, a compilation of other numbers. And so you can drill. You can drill to your heart's delight to get back to the source of where these numbers are being compiled. If that's something you want to see at that point in time, maybe to give you a little bit of confidence that these numbers are right. It seems like an extreme number. Can that be right? Let's drill in, see where it's coming from. And not only drill in a structural way, because this is the same structure you create at the beginning when you put your transactions in, but also drill down in timeframes to see when is that change happening, why is that change happening. Now, you're trying to analyze the past in this case and see what's happened when and why, and what might happen going forward, and what the various risks are associated with those different routes.
Do you choose which companies you provide it for, or is Brixx a suitable offering for any company to come along and use out the box?
Sitting behind Brixx is an application that is tailorable for any business in any industry anywhere in the world. And that's our brain, if you like. And we know it works because we've delivered it bespoke with the elements of businesses and industries as diverse as sports clubs, football clubs, Premier League football clubs, retailers, national, multinational retailers, manufacturing, product manufacturing, process manufacturing, service companies. Brixx has been tailored to all of these companies with elements that we would make bespoke. So if you're a football club, you might have a stadium object. It's quite bespoke. By taking, and we would sell that product for thousands of pounds a year, bespoke and managed and maintained in that way. But what I really wanted to do with Brixx was to democratize it. I really wanted to make it available for anybody anywhere in the world. So it's a volume business. Now, because of the internet, people have got access to the power of Brixx for £10 a month. Now, if we think of that in enterprise terms, that's £1 million a year sort of software that they are buying, and the advisory services that go around it. We're putting the power of that capability of planning in anybody's hands at those sort of levels, 10, 20, £30 a month. And so it's affordable, it's usable. And I used to say we operate in and have provided solutions in 82 countries, and I've just learned we're now at 93. So anywhere there's internet, anywhere there's cloud access, you can use Brixx. And I wanted to democratize it in that way. I wanted to simplify it. I want to bring it down to the base components. It shouldn't be rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's about income, what you sell. It's about expenditure, what you spend. There's different flavors of those. There's spend on direct costs, indirect costs, people costs. And then there are assets that you deploy to run your business, cars, vans, coffee machines. And there are funding instruments. There's debt and there's equity and all sorts of flavors around that. And so if you've captured all of those elements, it doesn't matter whether you're running a football club or whether you're running a multinational retailer, you've got the same elements. It's just how you compile them. And that's what Brixx does.
So Brixx sounds like an incredibly powerful tool. Is it designed in such a way that it requires training?
If you're going to democratize something, it has to be stupid simple, right? You have to keep it stupid simple. The interface needs to be intuitive, work the way that you do. When we were building bespoke solutions, we trained and supported people and maintained that product. What we've done by moving to this democratized version, this globally available cloud-based SaaS model, is to make it more generic, make it more stupid simple to understand and deploy. And that's a never-ending task. It can always be better. So, you know, one of the problems, and it's the same with any business really, is you know your business, right? So you're not as critical as you might be. And so you have one chance for a first impression. I'm always interested in people who first come to Brixx and what do they see? And we need to get better at collecting that. But I love those first reflections. Because if there's a problem, if somebody's getting stuck at a certain point, it's not their problem, it's my problem. It's a software problem. If that button isn't obvious, if that float over isn't as articulate as it needs to be, that's the software's not good enough. So it's a constant improvement that we need to make on software to make it easy to use.
Is that seen as a threat, perhaps, to accountants? Is it embraced or is it resisted against? Because, a lot of service providers, they don't want their roles simplified.
We're not providing that service that the accountants are providing. What a waste of all that expertise and experience and capability to have an accountant writing a spreadsheet. It's just a tool, right? So have a tool that can build a model in 20% of the time, and you can give 80% of the time over to giving advice around that model, running those scenarios. Here's the best way to structure. Here's the funding requirements and how you might solve those problems. Don't have the accountant spending 80% of the time building an Excel spreadsheet. This is hugely complementary for accountants. The faster they can build the models with absolute integrity, the faster they can get to giving the sort of advisory services that are, as valuable as they can charge.
And have you found that any VCs or private equity firms are utilizing this forecasting, companies that are in control of other companies and trying to find out ways to make them more profitable? Is that something you've seen?
One of the oddities in the investing community, VCs, private equity, is that they make an investment decision based on their, confidence in the people to deliver what they're saying. And there'll be a plan, a financial plan, and they'll be on a spreadsheet or a spreadsheet base. And it's almost like they make that investment and then that plan never surfaces again. It's like, then what are we doing on an operational basis? What I don't understand is why, if you're going to invest on the basis of that plan at that point in time, the words and the music, the words and the finances, then why not keep that? And then as you're going through time, measure yourself against that. So bringing in actuals against the expectations, actuals versus forecast, looking at where you are against where you expected to be. That's the basis you invested on. Are we still on that basis? Are we still progressing towards that goal? Doesn't mean you can't change it. If you've got a model, you might go, well, look, we're pivoting because the market's changed.
From a security standpoint, or I should say a stability standpoint, is the machine behind Brixx stable? Is it going to be around in years to come? And do consumers have to be worried if they use your financial software or somebody else's financial software that they become in a relationship with this particular software and then Brixx vanishes or something happens to the machine, the brain power behind the app? Or is that all stable and well established? I mean, could you give me some idea of that?
So the brain's been around for more than 20 years. It's not doing anything different. Accounting practice hasn't changed in 20 years. Yeah, the treatments might have changed, but we encapsulate different treatments in the software. We deployed in one particular industry with an industry that has asset bases of more than 5 billion, is regulated by the government. We had 500 to 1,000 customers there, top finance directors, CFOs, bookkeepers. And the thing is with a balance sheet, if it's not balanced, then there's a problem, right? It doesn't have integrity. So we've had the scrutiny over 20 years on the utilization of this software, the deployment of this application, the brain, in everything as diverse as Premier League football clubs through to multinational retailers, helicopter manufacturers, molten metal process manufacturing, architects' offices. I mean, wherever you think, but we've proven the integrity, we've proven the utilization. The profession hasn't changed in all those years and won't. It still has the stability of double entry accounting. And so we stay on top of the software, obviously. We're maintaining the software every day. We're listening to the market, we're responding to the market, but actually it's pretty well the same software 20 years ago, fundamentally doing what we're doing. It's just that the market's come towards us where there wasn't that formality in smaller businesses of finance.
So when you're making these decisions, is it something you're doing on your own? Are you carrying that cross, or is it something that you're discussing in and amongst your team?
Oh, I have full disclosure of the business with the team. They share the passion, the goals that we've got. They share the understanding of the power that we're able to give to people for relatively small contribution. No, it's embedded in the culture to be introspective, to learn, to listen, and if you're going to scale, get the base right. Be jumping on something solid, not jumping on something that's on quicksand. So there's a lot of quick and dirty solutions, and it's not our way. I'd rather spend another year, as I have done, just getting the platform right so that we can scale, because we don't want to bring people on the journey and let them down. We want them to grow with us.
Your tool uses data that is precious to a company. How do you manage their data? Does their data come to you? And could you give me a little bit of an understanding as to the typical consumer? Do they have control and ownership of their data, and where do you see it and what do you do with it?
Yeah, it's interesting. We don't take any of the customers' data. We don't hold any of the customers' data. All we hold are the calculations. So Brixx doesn't produce a file that we hold that we then give back to a client. The client inputs the data. We process that data. So we understand the processing of the data. We hold all the keys to the processing of the data, but the input and the output is still with the client. So if a client, so we have a very powerful capability, which we haven't touched on within Brixx, and that's the ability to collaborate. So when you're talking about investors, or you're talking about the banks, or you're talking about somebody that could consult and give you some more advice, you want to share your plan with them. That's in your control, to share your plan with either an editor or a viewer or a team member. That's a collaboration capability that sits in Brixx, but it's your power. It's not Brixx's power. So if somebody wants us to look at their plan, we can't just open the cupboard and pick it out and look at it. We have to ask the client to share that with us, and then we'll have a look at it with them. So we don't hold the processed data. We hold the processing of the data, and there's a big difference.
So you have no capabilities to look into someone's Brixx account and see what it is that they're actually doing?
Absolutely not, unless they share that with us. For me, it's a fascination to play those business scenarios through, and what's possible with this business. Where are the volumes? What is the elasticity that's in there? What's the risk of how much money do I need to achieve that? To be able to have that simulation. You remember, as there was a terrific series of software toys called SIMS, and you could simulate your family growth, your activities, and it was just a lovely piece of escapism for kids to be able to explore what's possible. Well, that's what Brixx is. Explore what's possible with your business idea. Is it feasible? It is important to understand the business idea that will never work as those that can be ridiculously profitable. Go back to Dragon's Den, and how many times do they say, love your idea, love what you're doing, but I just don't think you can make a living out of it. So just enjoy it as a passion. Understanding that a business really can't take you where you want to go, but deliver some other ROI in terms of satisfying your passion or whatever, that's absolutely fine. But go in with your eyes open. Or if you've got a massive risk that, in this business, go in with your eyes open. Understand that this is crucial, this is critical. If those energy prices don't go down, your business doesn't work. So if the cost of money doesn't go down, your business doesn't. So, contemplate those things. Go in with your eyes open. Understand that you're running a risk.
Brilliant. Thank you, Barrie. Thanks for your time today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.